Have you ever looked at a map of Japan and thought you knew its shape? Well, what if I told you there's a massive, hidden secret buried deep in its core, a feature that literally cracked the country in half and continues to shape its destiny every single day?
Welcome to Japan Deep Dive Report. So glad you could join us.
All right, let's get right into it. When you think of Japan, two things probably come to mind. Absolutely breathtaking mountains and, well, some pretty terrifying earthquakes. But here's the crazy part. What if they both came from the exact same source? From a colossal, invisible ditch sleeping just beneath the surface that acts as both a creator and a destroyer. And no, I'm not speaking in riddles. This isn't some kind of metaphor. We are talking about a very real, very massive geological feature. And understanding it is the key to understanding Japan itself.
It's called the Fossa Magna, and that name, which is Latin, is super direct. It just means great ditch. And believe me, it is a great ditch. It's a huge U-shaped valley, a massive tear in the Earth's crust that serves as the dividing line between the two halves of Japan.
So where exactly is this thing? Well, its western edge is super clear-cut. It's a famous fault line that runs from Itoigawa City all the way down to Shizuoka. You might hear it called the Itoigawa-Shizuoka tectonic line. The eastern side is a bit blurrier, but what you really need to know is that this whole area is a massive geological collision zone. It's the literal seam where the North American and Eurasian tectonic plates are smashing into each other. And this is where it gets really wild. This isn't just some line on a map. It's a fundamental split. To the west of the Fossa Magna, you're standing on ancient, solid bedrock, some of it over 500 million years old. But just step across that invisible line to the east, and suddenly the ground beneath your feet is a geological baby. It's all young sediment and volcanic rock, just 25 million years old or even less. It is, no joke, a tale of two completely different Japans.
So the big question is, how on earth did this happen? How does one country end up being built on two totally different foundations? Well, the answer is a pretty epic story full of geological drama and continental scale violence.
Let's break down this origin story. About 20 million years ago, the land that would become Japan started to rip away from mainland Asia. But it didn't just float off. It bent, kind of like a door on a hinge, creating this huge V-shaped gash right down the middle. For millions of years, that gap was a deep sea, and it just filled up with sand, mud, and volcanic ash. Then, another tectonic plate, the Philippine Sea Plate, started bulldozing its way up from the south, squeezing the two halves of Japan together. All that pressure forced the ancient seabed, all that mud and sand, to rise up out of the water. And boom, you have the new land that filled the Great Ditch.
You know, for centuries, this unbelievable feature was a complete secret. It took a sharp-eyed scientist from Germany, of all places, to come to Japan in the 1800s and realize something massive was going on right under his feet.
His name was Heinrich Edmund Naumann. He was a geologist, and he was the one who pieced the puzzle together. He looked at the rocks on one side, the rocks on the other, the lines of volcanoes, and basically said, wait a minute, these two halves don't match. He was the first to propose that a giant fissure, a great crack, split the entire country in two.
And Naumann was no tourist. He was a big deal. The Japanese government invited him to be the very first professor of geology at what's now the University of Tokyo. He literally helped build the country's first geological survey from the ground up. And then, in 1885, he published his game-changing paper, officially giving the Great Ditch its name, the Fossa Magna. He completely changed how we see Japan.
Okay, so that's the history lesson. But this isn't just about the ancient past. The Fossa Magna isn't a scar. It's a living, breathing force that is actively shaping Japan right now, every single day.
You can think of its legacy as having a split personality. It's an incredible creator, giving us those stunning landscapes. It's also a terrifying destroyer, fueling so many of the country's earthquakes. And then, there's a third role you'd probably never expect. It's also a provider.
So let's talk about the creator role. Remember all that squeezing and compressing? It created deep cracks in the Earth's crust. And those cracks are basically express lanes for magma to shoot to the surface. That's why you see a whole chain of Japan's most famous volcanoes. We're talking Mount Fuji, Mount Asama, the Hakone Mountains, marching right down the Fossa Magna. It's a literal chain of fire forged in the ditch.
But here's the twist in the story. That same immense pressure did something else. Up in the northern part of the Fossa Magna, it folded up all those young layers of sediment, kind of like wrinkling a rug. This created perfect little pockets or traps. And what got stuck in those traps?
huge amounts of natural gas and oil. It's an unexpected gift from this incredibly violent geological feature.
So the Fossa Magna isn't just history. It's an active engine, constantly at work. The same forces that ripped Japan apart and then stitched it back together are still pushing, still squeezing, still building. And that leaves us with a huge, lingering question. As this great ditch continues to shift and move, what will it create next? And what might it unleash on the future of Japan?